Today, I'm talking with Mr. Trees of Family Tree Seeds. Tyler has been breeding cannabis for over 20 years, and he's also a wealth of knowledge with boutique fruit trees. He's known for having resinous males, and also for being the creator of Pam and Cowboy Caviar. He's here today to drop some of his knowledge and experience with us. So let's get to it.
Usually if you grow a male for long enough and you play around with them, you can actually get like a cool cigarette, Vicks vapor rub, like all big ass heads hanging right on the stalk. And you're like, dude, right on. You know, like that's a hell of a question. That's a tough.
Hey everybody, all right, we are back with another section of the Breeding and Seed Collector Show, and this is a person that we've all seen around. I know a lot of people that is growing his gear, so I'm excited to have him here. Tyler of Family Tree Seeds, how are you doing today?
Dude, doing great, rolling, got my coffee, ready to blaze, ready to answer some questions, have some fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, my pleasure. I've been familiar with your work for a few years through the Future Cannabis Project, and a lot of growers that we know mutually have been growing out your gear. But for people who maybe not familiar with you, you should be, but that's kind of the point of this section too, is, Family Tree Seeds, you've been breeding cannabis for over 20 years. And kind of as a little bonus, you also specialize in like boutique fruit trees, which I thought was pretty freaking cool. It's more than just cannabis farming, even though that has been a huge part of your life. A lot of us, we, myself included, we get into cannabis and then we're like, I want to move on to some food crops. So it's cool. And you enjoy growing outdoors. You enjoy growing outdoors, and kind of in a lot of your selections, you're looking for kind of resinous males and maybe some mixed cannabinoid ratios. So let's give everybody a little bit of background that I didn't touch on there about what you've been doing.
Yeah, no, man, that's it. I'm a fruit tree doctor. They call me the fruit tree doctor. Mr. Trees, fruit tree specialist. I travel around. I do different fruit tree, diagnoses and care and all aspects, designing food forests and just helping people, grow their own stuff. Because like you said, once you start smoking and it kind of brings you to another place, and then maybe you start growing some basil, or maybe you start growing some weed and some other stuff in the windowsill, and you start gradually moving up, and before you know it, you got lemon trees and peach trees and all kinds of shit in the backyard, and everybody's, it's a wild ride once you get on it, and I've been blessed to live in a place where, we're one of the most diverse plant populations on planet Earth. So there are more plants from other places that all want to grow here. So I just kind of like, I've always spoke to the trees. So that's kind of like what I do on that side. So it helps me actually test gear. And I always talk about that, where I can like make friends with a lot of these people. Not everybody, but, some people, they want to grow, their own food, and they also want to grow their own medicine, and they're older, they don't have access or want to take any risks or whatever. So when they find out I can give them some seeds and kind of help them with that too, it's like oh, mind blown, all the possibilities just start rushing, so I can get them to kind of grow new stuff and do things that I can't do, and I get to see more numbers of things, from different places with different care methods and different environments and stuff like that. So I get to see a lot of my genetics, without doing a lot with them, myself, even though I do a lot with them myself, which is really cool. So it's kind of like this weird little niche, and that's kind of what I do. I like breeding not only cannabis, but I like making new like dragon fruit varieties, and mangoes are one of my big things that I go through, and I'm breaking leaves and smelling saps of mango leaves and separating them by scents, just like you kind of would with cannabis and all that stuff. So it's been a wild ride. I just turned 40 on Halloween, which is a whole new.
Congratulations to the dark side.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be a little bit more focused, but man, I have so much going on all the time. It's too much fun. And I figure once I start slowing down, that's when you start dying. So I'm just going to speed it up, man. I'm just going to speed it up. You know?
I like that. I like that approach. And you're in a good area too. You know, you're Southern California, so you get a lot of like good natural sun. The climate works with you. I know they just changed the regions, the climate zone maps, but I don't think it affected you too much down there.
Yeah, not us, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, you know, again, we kind of make that transition, and I look over to my right. I received some bird feed in the mail the other day, and with that they sent me pack of basil, dark opal as
Nice.
well. So yeah, it is. It's all
Yeah.
about, you know, we share all kinds of seeds with each other.
Yeah,
So
that's the bomb.
I
That's
thought that
the
was
bomb.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
That'll-
I got a big, like on top of my microwave and my refrigerator are all these different plates and box tops and all kinds of stuff of all the different seeds from all the different stuff that we collect. Oh, that's good. We're saving those seeds for this one. We're saving there's seeds of everything everywhere all over my house, which is pretty cool. You know, it's like of wild shit, you know? So.
Now, is the process, you know, as far as like kind of breeding and selecting, very similar with fruit as it is with cannabis, or are there, you know, is it faster? I wish it were
Yeah,
faster with cannabis.
yeah, no, man, that's pretty much why I love cannabis so much, is because, you know, with a fruit tree or something, if you truly want to breed something, you've got to plant it from seed. You know, you got to plant things from seed. You got to look at things from seed. And with trees, it can be, you know, it can be anywhere from 3 if you're lucky in like the perfect situation with certain varieties of fruits, but usually more along the lines of like 6 to 10 years before you're going to see any type of fruit or return from that seed that you planted. So if you're like swapping pollen on mangoes or, you know, citrus or whatever you're trying to swap pollen with, and then you're going to grow those seeds out, you better have like a 10-year plan. And you better grow enough of them to where you can kind of select, because if you spend 10 years growing one tree, you know, it's like, it's probably not going to be the greatest tree, right? You know, just like cannabis. So you got to grow some numbers with it, right? So along the way, like I've learned tricks on how to speed things up, and there's all kinds of little rabbit holes and things you can kind of go down, from twisting trunks to like do it to cold winters to, you know, all pruning techniques, you know, grafting pieces of it onto older trees, you know what I mean? In order to speed up growth, like various different methods you can do to kind of see the fruit sooner. But that's why cannabis is so cool, because you can make a couple things, you know, in a season if you really wanted to, right? And then you can kind of look at those, and you can make monumental gains very quickly. You know, it's really fun. And if you kind of know some of the rules, you can break them, and you can get to places that, you know, would take people years to get to, you know what I mean? And you're like, wow, how the hell did you know, it's like it's just really cool. Like, so I'll always be breeding trees, because that's the focus. Like I got 1,000 mango trees that, you know, next year we'll have fruit on this one. Maybe 2 years we'll have fruit on those ones, and like it's like staggered all the way through, you know, for, you know, hundreds of different types of trees. So that, you know, by the time my kids are 20 and 30, they'll have their own varieties that they can kind of, you know, patent and run with or sell or do those things, you know. So we're trying to set up, and I'm really trying to put together a breeding program for mangoes, in specific for Southern California, because all of them come from other places in Florida and stuff like that. We have colder, harsher winters, and there's only a few that really kind of tolerate it, and even those are a little pissy with you. So I've been going down this rabbit hole of selecting cold tolerance and extra vigor and things like that. And I'm finally getting, you know, to the point where I'm getting some of my trees that I can start naming and keeping or throwing out or regrafting and doing some stuff. And we got one called Beach Candy that we just named this year, which is really cool. It's a long, bitchin' pink, you know, like a red swirly kind of very pointy looking mango.
Oh wow.
It's really kind of interesting looking, you know, as it stands. And then it has a killer flavor. It tolerates our winters. It grows really, really, you know, robustly. So there's a bunch of those that are coming on, but weed and fucking breeding fruits is like, that's nothing cooler than seeing something and then having something that nobody else in the entire world has had or seen before. You know what I mean? You're like, this is the coolest thing ever, you know? And it's like, you get to choose whether or not it floats out there or it doesn't float out there, or you know, you can figure out, oh, is it worth doing this? It's always a battle, you know. It's pretty cool. So
you're like, is it done yet? Is it refined yet? And that's,
yeah.
you definitely said a couple of things there. It says you got to know the rules to break the rules. Audio engineer by trade, and back in school, my head instructor, that was his favorite quote, and it stuck with me. He's like, when it comes to, like making great music, and we were engineering, he's like, you have to know the rules so you can break them to get the to get the intended result.
Yep.
And like that has stuck with me my entire life. And also too, I do have a little bit of an agricultural background, and I'm in Washington State, and I did a little bit of, this is close to 10 years now, but some field trial work with WSU on the Cosmic Crisp apples. And I was fresh, I was like into definitely more cannabis knowledge in agriculture college. This was school, I was there to learn, and this was part of it. And I started to talk to them about breeding, and they, the apple guys just looked at me when I was talking about breeding and seeds and phenotypes and all this stuff. They're like, you're crazy. It's all about grafting. It's all about rootstock. He's like, we use rootstock, son, which you can't do in cannabis, but
yeah,
I thought that one was, pretty interesting. Because like you said, it could take 10 years to find out that you just created garbage.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
It's a heartbreaker. If you think cannabis is like, oh.
It is. And if it's garbage, the thing about trees is you can turn it into rootstock. If it grew pretty well, okay, you can turn it into something else. You can still utilize it, It's just like, but yeah, you just wasted 10 years, It's like, shit, So it's like, and it's like if you grow things like a tangerine or something from seed, right? It doesn't give you hybrid offspring, and like there's certain things that don't grow what you would think it would grow like, like if you wanted like a hybrid citrus, you'd want to breed it with like a pomelo because it gives you hybrid offspring and a lot of seeds to choose from, and actually you could find different things in there a little bit easier, whereas other things won't give you those same results. So if you waste all this time not knowing the rules, you're just wasting your time in a lot of cases. So you got to know certain things, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some cannabis genetics and some selection, because you have definitely made some wonderful selections and you continually work on this. One of them that I see a lot of people growing, and personal close friends growing, but it's Pam. And now this was originally Pam Anderson. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How did you what did you enjoy about that? Why was that like the keeper? What made you select Pam as something that you were going to do a lot of work with? Because it's a beautiful plant.
Yeah. So like, yeah. So like Pam's mother was an awesome plant, and it turned a lot of heads, and it really ignited a lot of fires, under my belt, for making seeds and preserving things and being prepared to move things forward and not screw it up. So when I got seed from Pam's mother, I was looking through those, and Pam was the most beautiful, colorful, modern looking one out of the bunch, right? She had color. She had this skunk funk, like Tootsie Roll musk thing going on to her, you know what I mean, which was killer. She cloned in 7 days she would have roots, really, easily, she'd be spitting the roots easy. And it was just one of the prettiest plants when it was growing in the whole garden. And I had some other plants out there with it, when we were first looking for, the keeper. And it was like, my wife was like, that one's the prettiest one out there. That one's like Pam Anderson, she's the queen of the 90s, because the original seeds came from the old bag seed from the 90s, or late 90s, early 2000, maybe 99 to 2002, 99 to 2003 at the very latest, but probably more like, 99, 2000. It was just a mixed bag of all the seeds that I've collected from that period in this little jug, right? So it was kind of like this weird thing where she just she just named her. She's like, she's the hottie, and we're gonna call her Pam Anderson. I'm like, oh, that fits great, so that's how she got her name. And then after that, I started really, crossing and playing and learning every single thing about her, that I could. Um, Moved on in the generation. I had, I had extra seeds. We had more seeds from the line. So originally, what happened was Pam's mother grew up really nice, beautiful. It was one of the keepers of the group. I harvested everything on the plant except for the little lowers, let them finish, and I took some of those off, and then I left a little piece on the left to rot to nature. And I'm like, maybe she'll spit out some seeds, maybe she'll herm, maybe we'll get some, some rotalization or whatever, to happen, and I'll get some beans. She rotted. She started, many months later, winter set in. I went out there, I harvested those old little crispies in there, and there were like, a dozen-ish seeds somewhere in there,
Nice.
and I didn't know if she had gotten pollinated because, people grow around here. Other things happen,
Mm-hmm.
the whole situation goes on. But I had seen Pam's mom start to rotalize on that second harvest. So I harvested that first batch, and that second batch that I was going to wait to harvest, you saw some of the little nanners start to happen way late in the flower section. She was stressed out towards the end there. So I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll leave this last little bit. And that's how I got that, that's how I, kind of left it to do its thing. So I grew those seeds, and in those seeds were mostly several females, but there was a male in the batch. In fact, there was two males in the batch. The first male got killed by my dogs, and I was pissed. And the second male turned out pretty good. I was calling him the Hoff for a little while, and that's how I made the F2 generation. So that took me down a whole path of looking up, like, how the hell would like a rotalization or a hermaphrodite be able to spit out male seeds? And like, is it pollen
Yeah.
contamination? Is it all these things? And then you hear all these stories and the stuff about like super males and how they're, how there's that 99.9% or whatever. And then,
Right.
so I never really knew what had happened, which took me to Phylos originally, because I had heard back then, it was when everything was cool. It was years before all the, the scandal and the whole deal.
Yeah.
And, Kevin Jodrey was talking about Phylos and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm going to send the Pam, because I had selected Pam, from those seeds, the whole deal already. And I had been growing her, and I wanted to learn more about where the fuck she was and what had happened. And I called him up, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me, what it is? If I send you a piece of this, could you tell me what it is and, what's going on with it? And they're like, yeah, we can tell you with without
Right.
any doubt what it is. Like, you'll map it out. All this. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? So I was like, all right. So I paid the ticket. You know what I mean? It was like $300 or $200, $300, something. It wasn't cheap. And
No.
I sent it off, sent off the thing, and sent it to him. And then you get the report back, and the report said, boom, it had its own galaxy bubble, right? It was its own,
Unique then.
it started its own little section in their galaxy,
Okay.
which was wild, because they had tested like, thousands of plants or whatever. And, regardless, I was like, okay, well, that sucks, because it doesn't really tell me anything about it, but it did tell me that on the rarity chart and all those other things, it was like it wasn't common, and it had started its own galaxy bubble. Then it didn't have any current relatives, and if you looked up Do, there were relatives and close relatives, and you'd have this whole ring of related plants. And Pam just sat alone in this empty bubble. So I was like, okay, so I'm not going to kill her. I love smoking her, and I'm just going to hold her, and I'm just going to start working the line. So I have, I'd made the F2. So I started making F3s, and I started doing BXs or BC1s and back crossing to the original Pam. And out of the F2, I selected Pam 15, which is my favorite smoke out of all the Pams that I've grown and seen. And it's like a wild throwback to some friggin' landrace thing. It's super
Wow.
tall and funky and lanky, and the buds are really, really pointy, and like have great structure to them, but they're thin and fluffy and wash like a dream. You know, they just
A lot
stuff
of
falls
surface
out from
area.
there. And you don't have, yeah, you don't have to play with it. You don't have to break it up. It just is.
Nice.
It's like the perfect weed you would love to have in the 90s, because you would sell bags of it and it would look huge and you would be like the legend. You know what I mean? Because it would just weigh huge. But
It was three fingers,
it was
dude.
fluffy, right?
It
Like
was
so
three
nice when
fingers.
it looks like that. It's like, holy shit. But it's got killer resin to it. It's got this like, it's really unique on like the way that it smells. Sometimes you can get like Tootsie Rolls and chocolates and funky like rich notes out of it, wines and rotten berries, and but other times you can get like some searing, you know, like hairspray funk out of there. You know, you can get weird things that come out of it, whether you're growing it inside, whether you're growing it outside, whether you're growing it in the cooler months or the warmer months. It's in you know, there's all these little variables. It responds drastically different to environmental change, you know, more so than other things, you know. But one thing's always true is it's extremely colorful, beautiful, and the smoke is always just, it's time loss weed, where you smoke it, you just like, you sit down to do something and like you look at your watch or the clock and like 4 hours have gone by and it like feels like, you know, 2 minutes, you know. It's like the coolest ride. So a lot of people have been growing out a lot of different PAMs. People have selected their own, I mean, all around the world. I mean, you know, from you know, islands in Scotland and, you know, crazy places on, you know, the UK's. I mean, everybody's found their own ones where they really enjoy the PAM, and it breeds really, really true and strong to where it's going to dominate a lot of the crosses, especially if you use it as the female. But it's like, it's a very cool line. It doesn't remind me of much of anything. Like when I see it online, I can be scrolling through and be, oh, that's the PAM. It's just got this funny way of where it just prays like nobody's fucking business all the time. It's one of those killer plants where you can get a throw to the PAM 1 where it's more on this dense modern looking bud side, and you can get throws towards the 15 where it's really kind of, you know, wild and land racy with just extreme branching and just nugs everywhere. Both are killer, but they're definitely, you know, they're definitely interesting. You know, they're not, it's not the commercial weed that you're going to find all over the place. It's definitely, it's definitely a connoisseur type, you know, chronic where you're getting something different, and it's got lift, you know, that's for sure.
And the PAM 15 too sounds like, you know, something that's really good for washing, as you mentioned, because I get that question a lot. That's, you know, a very common question actually to breeders these days, is like, how does it wash? You know, what does it wash? So it's good to have that. And now I wrote down here when you sent it into Phylos, because I was curious about, you know, hermaphrodite and the rotalization there. Did they ever check like chromosomes? Is there an X and a Y to it, or was it just double?
No, it's
Okay.
I can pull up the report, and I probably should because it's been such a long time. You know what I mean? I didn't pull it up. There's some old things. I'll make a post about it. I'll see what I can kind of pull up the whole report, and we'll post the whole thing. Back on my feed, if you go back far enough, like, you know, 2018, 2017, 18, somewhere in there.
Deep scroll.
Yeah, you'll see. You'll see the galaxy and the bubbles of how it's separated out, and you can kind of see that there's a picture of all that stuff there. But no chromosome count that I remember seeing or any of those things. But then again, that was a long time ago, and I've learned a lot about that since then. So maybe I wasn't looking, you know, to see, you know.
Right.
But I'll dig
Some
that
of
up.
that stuff.
I'll dig that up for sure. Yeah.
Oh,
But
cool.
that was the
Well,
whole reason. Like, you know, it's like, you know, not knowing, you don't know where you're going. I wanted to kind of figure out where it came from, how to make better decisions, like breeding wise. Like, it would be cool to know what the hell to call it. It would be, I mean, there were so many reasons to like figure out where the hell it was and what the hell it came from. But it is unique, and that's all that, you know, that's what I got out of it. And that was, you know, bullshit or no bullshit. I mean, it is unique, and enough people have grown it now to where it's like, you know, it stands on its own that way, you know. So It's cool.
Definitely. And all the growers that I've known grown it have definitely grown their fair share of
Totally.
different
Totally.
strains before. So yeah, and it's staying in their garden. So that's definitely a good
Yep.
sign. Yeah, and two, from working with it, this is one thing I encourage people to do is be familiar with your plants, but you're able to see those traits passing on and those traits pretty much being dominant in a lot of the offspring. So does that kind of shape your opinion when you're looking at some other things? You're like, well, this peanut butter and jelly goes together really well.
Yeah,
So
dude, it's so cool. Like knowing what your plant's gonna do, and that's like Pam 1 has always been my calibration tool, So anything that I ever use as a crosser, any male that I ever pick, any female that I reverse, everything always gets crossed to Pam 1. And we always grow the Pam 1, whatever cross it is, whether we throw it in the garbage or whatever. It's always there. And it helped me calibrate like what the hell, what's going to happen when I cross the Pam 1. And I can tell, I can tell you what's going to happen, and how she's going to work. And the way that you actually infuse fuel into Pam, the best way is to use her is to use her as the female with something else that is fuely with the male, right? You need to use her that way. If you use like the males from the Pam line, that way you're going to get all the Pam type tones on whatever you try to put it on. You try to put it on SFE, you try to put it on dog, you try to put it on those types of things, you're going to get those tones. So also, like, if you want to do things that are like true F1s, crossing things to Pam, you get hybrid vigor like nobody's business, because she's already an inbred thing. Like, it's already,
she's out there. She's so far removed
it
from
already
anything
is.
else.
And originally, I mean, back where she came from originally, there was not a lot of breeding stuff going on. There's not a lot. All that stuff was pretty core, uniquely kept and just kind of just preserved as is in a lot of ways. It's like it's a very Himalayan type herb. You know what I mean? From for all of the people of the world come here, all of the plants of the world come here, and all of the herb of the world comes here too. You know what I mean? So it's like there's all kinds of different cultures and things that bring their flowers and stuff. So it's just one of those lost little funny little lines that just kind of just got tossed to the wayside. I kind of breathe a little life into it, and it's a good plant that is a good tool for breeding. It doesn't, like gopher. It's a good thing that I've noticed too is, I've been meaning to bring it up more to tell people to try, because here gophers won't eat any of the Pam stuff. Like
Really?
I can plan out, and I've done this a couple times now. It's been like 3 seasons now where I've first season was an accident, obviously, because that's how you learn. You get the idea,
Right.
right? You plan your stuff out. Like, I put an SFV, I put, the dog, I put a couple of crosses that I was working on, a bunch of different things in this little bed, and a Pam 1 and a Pam 15. And after a couple days, I would lose 1 or 2 plants over like a 3-day period from a gopher coming through and me not being able to get them on time and being lazy. And by the end of it, I just said, fuck it. I mean, I didn't really even care. And I just moved on to other things, and I let those Pams sit in there. And that gopher never ate the Pams that whole first year. And it ate every other plant, every single plant, for like every day consecutively for like a week. I would
Wow.
be down a plant in that area. And by the end of it, it was just the Pam 1 and the Pam 15 standard, and they wouldn't eat them. So the next year I kind of did the same thing, and I put out some other ones with that same thought in mind, right? And I put some that I protected them better this time, and I did that. But then I gave some to that type of idea, and same thing happened where they ate a couple of the other ones, and I didn't let them go through the whole batch, but
Right.
the Pams were the ones that were the first in the line, and they actually would have to go past them to like get to the other stuff. So it's like they don't have any gopher trouble, which is kind of, or vole trouble for me, which is interesting. You know what I mean? It's something that I have a problem with here, and I've had to deal with. So I've never heard anybody else talk about that with like plants and other things like that, which is kind of interesting. But it's something I've friggin' watched over the past 3 years now, and it's been noticeable. So I'm wondering if, like, the offspring in other places, you know, will kind of, somebody's selections will do the same thing. Like maybe we can get on this go for research thing, you know, which is kind of interesting. But little things like that, you just figure out your plants, what they can do, what they'll be strong with, but you can make cool, strong hybrid, bigger, you know, hybrids with her, which is killer. Gophers don't like her.
That's a fascinating
Never
correlation.
seen a spider mite on her either. I've seen thrips on them, but I've never seen a spider mite on her, which is, you know, you've had other, you know, I've had them, yeah, many times. They're a resilient plant, you know, which is really, really, really cool.
And I assume there, you know, everything else in the bed is healthy. It's not like, oh, well, it just picked on the weak plant. That's the healthy one. And, you know,
yeah, those are the ones I want. I'd rather have those other ones that the fuckers eating. You know what I mean? You know, it's like those are my fuels and my babies. You know, so it's like I love the Pam, but shit, you can't eat all my fuel. You know, it's like that's
no.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's just been weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That kicks off the scientific brain in me. I'm like, is it the exudates? Is it like, are they like garlics coming out of their pores? And you know, it's just like, there's so many things it could be. But that's a real trait. That's a real quality, particularly for outdoor growers. And I would be fascinated to see that follow up of like, you know, again, because you work with mixed cannabinoids as well, but to see how and what percentage that magic translates into the offspring. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I do know that like both of them smell like sons of bitches in veg, right? Like they smell, they are really a stinky, skunky, funky plant, especially, you know, just brushing them up against them, but to stand alone, even in veg, they're stinky. They're one of those funny little things, you know, which I don't know, you know, that shouldn't matter, but they are, and that's two things they have in common, you know.
Yeah, terpenes are kind of, you know, plants' defense against some insects and some larger things. So it'd be interesting if it's working under the ground in the root system as well. I wouldn't doubt it. But speaking of some of the mixed cannabinoid ratios, though, there was one strain that you have, a Martha Stewart. And I was like, gosh, that's a great one. And that had a little bit of CBD in it. So is that one that you've worked with recently, or do you have some information for people out there?
Yeah, like the the Martha Stewart and the Martha's Mustard, and you know, that whole realm was, you know, years back I went through the whole CBD, you know, realm where I wanted to make more plants that were more 1-to-1s or you know, high CBD and different types of things. A little bit of CBD on the back end. Like I figured out during that period that I like herb that has like a small, you know, 2 or 3%, maybe 4% CBD in there, but high THC with just a little bit of CBD in there. It's like anti-paranoia, anti-anxiety. It's really cool. Makes it last longer for me. All these other things, and like that was like a magic ratio, so to speak. So I set out to make plants kind of like that for a little while, and I made some high CBD to help you know, different family members and dogs and different stuff that were you know, cancers and ailments and stuff. I wanted to have some, you know, both spectrums, you know, for you know, RSOs and stuff like that. So the Martha Stewart was one of those things where it was the PAM one, and it was the 3D CBD from Spain, which was basically a secret from them, but it's, you know, it was essentially a Harlequin, you know, type CBD from Spain, you know, and this was back when CBD wasn't even on the radar, really. It was just coming on, just flickering, you know what I mean, in the beginning, you know. And I started growing a whole bunch of stuff. I ordered a bunch of stuff from there. I ended up getting hooked up with Ringo, the Ringo's family, and getting a bunch of different stuff from them, the Ringo's gift, and a bunch of different pineapple CBD stuff, and a bunch of cool stuff. I got hooked up through there. So I started working different lines, and I made the Martha Stewart then, and I made the Flamingo Ringo lines, which is the pink pistol, you know, CBD lines. And the Martha Stewart was cool. It leaned a lot towards the PAM, and it was really a rustic, outdoor, tough plant that was like, you know, it was durable as shit, and it had higher THC, and a little bit of CBD in the majority of the parents. Like most of the time, because the male I chose apparently, you know what I mean, didn't pass a ton of the CBD. It was overshadowed and dominated by the PAM or whatever in that
Right.
cross. So it was PAM dominating another plant, again, in a different way. So a lot of those had, yes, then I ended up like growing a bunch of those and handing a bunch of those out to a bunch of my different friends, and they started making different crosses with them. And you know, we got my buddy Birthright from my buddy Rio from Birthright Seed Co. He crossed it to his old sour OG Kush from the Hell's Angel sour OG, and crossed a couple of the Martha Stewarts, and sent me back a bunch of those. And we ended up calling that Martha's Mustard, and that was a killer one. That one had a lot of high CBD, high THC to a little bit smidges of CBD in there to take away that anxiety and the paranoia factor. But that's a cool one. It's just kind of an interesting thing. It was more on a medicine standpoint than it was for anything other than, you know, it wasn't for the shelf. It wasn't for hash. It wasn't for, any sparkle. It wasn't for, selling. It was basically trying to make some cool medicine that might help some people, help myself, help some people. And I've always looked for stuff that helps me eat. I like that appetite stimulation stuff. I like that stuff that wants you to make you eat. A little CBD helps you eat a little bit too. It helps me eat anyway, a little bit, which is cool. But yeah, that's a little phase. I haven't grown any Martha Stewarts out recently, but every once in a while I'll dust some out. I'll give them away as freebies, some,
Nice.
whether it's the Martha's Mustard or the Martha Stewart, especially if somebody wants, different CBD stuff or they're asking about it, they'll always get some Martha Stewart in there, which is kind of cool. But
It is. It's cool to see the options for some of the minor cannabinoids, and I do like how you relate it. It's still a high THC, so it's going to give that impact that a lot of people are after, but that CBD can help mitigate some of the undesirable effects some people experience,
yeah.
And offer some benefit. What looking at kind of your current lineup, though, I always like to ask readers about something that people have the ability to pick up. There's a lot of hits, and Pam 15 I know is still available. Not sure if the Pam one is, but what are maybe two things that you currently have available that you are stoked for people? And since you do a lot of growing outdoors, and I know people are both outdoor and indoor that watch the show, maybe a suggestion for people who want to go outdoors, and maybe a suggestion for people who want to go indoors.
Totally. So first of all, like I got a plethora of cool stuff that's on Daga. You can go to Daga and you can find a few things that are up there always. I'm not sure what's up there now, but some of the hits that are like blowing tops off right now is the Cowboy Caviar, and that one is an epic fuel of it's awesome. It's
The gas lovers.
It's the gas lover's dream. It is the nastiness that you're looking for. It is killer OG chem in seed form every time. You know what I mean? It's not like you're gonna get something fruity. You're gonna get some gas in there, man. It's a killer one. That's the Dog Walker OG, and then the old heirloom SFV that was Mandelbrot's personal breeding stock that I got directly from Kev. And it's stellar. It's a game changing plant. It's like one of those plants where like people hear like, oh, SFV. Well, it's the real deal. It is the SFV, right? It is the one that
sourced correctly,
right? It is the one, right? So breeding with that and reversing that and playing around with that has been a friggin' joy over the last few years. I've been working with that puppy and making all kinds of friggin' killer things. So any of those things like the PAM 15 to the SFVs, the full the heirloom SFV lineup is friggin' killer. There's some awesome things that I love in there. If you like gasoline and strong, durable plants that do well outdoors as well.
Okay.
Both of those do pretty darn well outdoors. I had several people this year actually reach out at Cowboy Caviar, say they were in the shittiest place you can imagine weather-wise, whether it's
Right.
back east or on the coast in some hellish, landscape, or in the, whatever. And the Cowboys had come through with flying colors, which was awesome. And a lot of people are like, I got the absolute quintessential OG tones just nailed down it over and over again, which is cool. So all that cool stuff is there. That's all killer. I love doing that. And then the Max Santa stuff is something that once that starts catching fire, people are going to be asking me for it, and it's going to be gone. The Max Santas are, it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of flying a little lower, and I named it Max Santa. That's my own fault, but it's just the two pairs that came through it, But that is bitchin'. That's the Mac 1 to the Santa's cookies, which Santa's cookies is the form cut cookie to the 1979 Christmas bud. So it takes it back to the old pine, and that Christmas bud, that old stuff comes searing through in the look, in the leaf, and the majority of the population has these killer menthol, minty, pine, like cool cigarette, Vicks vapor rub, like all of those types of things coming off of them, which is just awesome. Like clean out your lungs type, like Expando blowing out friggin' icicles, man. It's really, really cool. It's some of the frostiest shit ever. I took the Max Santa to that, and then I inbred it, made it F2, made it to F3. Now we got some F3 stuff, and then I did some Mac 1 back crosses, which is cool. And Mac 1 doesn't like giving you seed; it only gives you friggin' 20
Right.
or 30 seeds out of a whole giant plant. So like the Mac 1 back crosses are, they're things for me to play with and like pass out and give cuts and work the line across and then out cross to make new seeds off of those seeds. So it's like it takes me longer to make those ones by far, but the Max Santa is so like unique in that you can't find pine and mint and these killer, like, it's like a cookie pine and mint type thing. It's like a rich pastry with this pine and mint, like you're walking through a forest. It's really, really nice type tones to it, unique. And the frost from the Mac 1 has just been amplified. The males that I chose in those, I used 2 males, and both of them were frosty bitches. I mean, they were killer males, if I do say so. They were awesome. After the first one showed frost without any type of interference or issue early on in flower, which is something that I really like. So that one is going to get used no matter what. If I find a male that does that without being cut back or without being put into the cold or without any of those types of interferences, if it shows up and is just barely kind of showing himself and then starting to put on a little glisten, that one's going to get pulled aside. That's a special plant right there. So one of those males was just like that, and then proceeded to have these like velvet carpet, just the coolest feeling leaves with just resin sparkled all over the base of them. Just really just beautiful male. And then had the Mac 1 like like Flintstone vitamin and cream like tone to it, like this creamy candy and Flintstone vitamin Mac 1 type smells to it, which was just killer. It had those smells in there, which was great. And then the second male that I used, because I don't like using one male all the time. Sometimes I like using, a couple in some cases.
Do you collect the pollen, or you just let it just kind of open pollinate during naturally through the course of the season?
Both kind
or
of.
both.
It just depends on the time of year, the male, the way that he's standing. Is he movable? A lot of the time, if they're not movable, I'll collect pollen and chop them back, substantially to see what resin comes off. Because usually if you grow a male for long enough and you play around with them, you can actually get a lot of males to show you a little bit of glitz. If you're a little rough with them, you cut them back. If you got some strong resiny genetics in there, Bodie has a lot of resin males in his stuff. DJ Short has some resin males in his stuff. So all of those guys have been around for such a long time using those types of males and those things that it's woven into a lot of the modern things. So you can find a lot of resin throughout a lot of the crosses, no matter, without looking too hard, as long as you're looking right, so
Right.
if they don't show you right away, then it's not quite as special as the one that I found, but you can cut them back. You can cut them back and put them in the cold and get them to come back. And Mean Gene's talked about that. A couple other people have talked about that, where you can get them to show resin and stuff like that, and you can really get a better idea. So I like to keep my males in pots and move them around and actually pollinate them.
Yeah.
Dust my actual plants with a whole
Me
male
too.
plant, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like
me too.
doing that. With feminized stuff, I like doing that too. It's harder to collect pollen with feminized stuff, and no matter what
Less
you
of
say,
it.
which it is, it's hard for me to. Doesn't produce hardly any, and it's like you're not crushing flowers, you're getting more plant parts in there, and you're just hoping,
Right.
a lot of the
Right.
time, so if you find a good dumper and feminize, and you can collect pollen, I would recommend do so and store it, because a good one that gives you a ton of pollen is a valuable asset. But most of the good plants that like you want to smoke, right? That if you
Right.
reverse them, they're not going to give you a lot of what you're looking for, so you got to look.
And that's what I've heard about the Mac One as well. I've never worked with it myself, but yeah, I've heard it's very picky as far as actually getting you seeds. If you get some, be thankful. And also veg time. And again, not having grown this myself, but I've heard the Mac veg is a little bit slower than some other plants. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that kind of passes on, and we should just be conscious of it, and just because we know the end product's fire, like the wait is worth it. But
it's totally worth it. It's one of those things where if you get a bad batch of it, or you grow it bad, you're like, oh, that's not very good. But if you grow some good Mac,
right.
or you go see it and you get some Mac from the cap, I mean, it's good fucking weed. You know what I mean? So, I think that slow growth and that stuntiness and that just the way that it is, I think that just comes with good weed. With that in that vein, right? Like there's another vein where good weed comes on branch, like OG has more of this branchy, tall structure, and that vein of genetic world, right? But I think in that wherever vein that Mac one kind of lays in that cookie Colombian type vein, I think the best plants that I've ever found out of a lot of the crosses using it are always more stout, slower vegging, kind of similar to the Mac itself. The ones that grow a lot better, they're not as good usually in the smoke end of it. You know what I mean? And that's just what I've found. So it's like that's where I went with the Mac Santa, to where the Pam and stuff, I can recommend people grow the Pam if you're into a plant that you want to grow outside, or you want to train it inside. It's a great trainable plant because it's got 1 million branches. It's got all kinds of stuff. It's a great trainer. It's a tall one. You'll have it's better to have too much than not enough. So you'll be able to take lots of cuttings and do all that. But my Maxana line, that's the one for people who want the short squat plants. They're like, don't take up a lot of space, will give you fireweed, but they're going to be small, stout, hideable, clustering plants that you're going to use it for. So, it's just kind of the tool that you need, or what you're liking, but that's its purpose. It's meant to be a smaller, stout plant because those are the best ones, and those are the ones I've selected through the F3, to this point. They're just nasty fucking Mac resin, just dripping. There's really cool pine cone buds, and I also like plants, not necessarily with those because they're so squat and the internode spacing so tight, but I usually always select plants that have like golf ball buds or pine cone buds stacking. I don't like dense colas. I don't recommend that, especially if you're growing outside. You know what I mean? You don't want to mess around with that. Unless it's finishing in August or first week of September, if you're lucky, because it's just too much of a gamble at that point. If you grow, more viney plants with just rock hard pine cone nugs that are just nice, individual, beautiful, just buds, just stack up along the stem, a longer stem that does its thing. it's just, I think that's the way to go, you know, when you're doing outside, for me anyway. And those are the types of plants that I enjoy smoking more too. You know, the hairs don't get all mashed up. And
Right.
so if you grow
There's
any of my stuff that's got some legs, you'll notice that most of the buds are going to be, it's going to be smaller buds. They're not going to be giant colas, even though you'll get some, but they're going to be stacked up like pine cones all along the.
and the harvest in the end, you know, yield comes around similar, and especially if you were going for, you know, concentrates, the yields could actually be higher because again, you have there, you know, it's twofold. It's a, it's an IPM thing, not to have huge buds outside because of the moisture and all that, but also, you know, again, in the washing aspect, you have more surface area when
Yeah.
it's not all just chunked. So, but that's a good one. And then the Max Santa, you know, I primarily grow indoors, so I do like those short, bushy ones. That is, and since I do perpetual, I've got, you know, a couple 4x4s. I always have to wait for the flowering tent to finish. So the, you know, the veg tent, I do all kinds of tricks to slow veg down sometimes.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a good one
That's a
a
good
good
one.
one for me there.
Yeah, there's a Max Santa OG where I crossed the Max Santa. It was like, you know, I don't know, the F2 to the OG, the SFE, heirloom SFE. Those ones came out killer, you know, and that improved the growth a little bit. Gave those. Peter got some of those. Those might be some up on my site still. I might still have some of those. There's some. All the Max Santa, the Bahama Berry Max Santa, that's like the hype, you know, that came from Soulfire. I don't know if you know Bahama Berry or any of that stuff, but his Bahama Mama and you know, the strawberries and something strawberries and cream or one of those, made the Bahama Berry. And then I went through a bunch of those and I found some cool stuff, and I chose one or two of those and made the Bahama Berry Max Santa to keep that sparkle. And the Bahama Berry had the stretch of the Bahama Mama, so that it was trying to improve the squattiness of the Max Santa and keep that going on. So that's a cool one that I have. There's still some stuff out there, but the stock market's going to change the world, man. So when when you're ready for that one, I'll send you one of those.
Right.
That's going to change the game. I don't know if you've seen pictures of that one or not, but that
No,
one
you
changed the game. Yeah.
You so, all right. Well, you're leading into the next question. Is like, what are you excited for in the future? So tell me about the stock market, because I don't play the stock market, but this one actually sounds a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, you gotta
So
buy the
what's
stock,
stock
bro.
market?
Yeah, you gotta buy the stock, dude. Hashtag buy the stock, bro. It is.
I love it. I
It is,
love it.
dude. The stock is up, bro. The stock is right.
There's so many good things you can do with that. This is
It's the
brilliant.
best, bro. Stock markets is radical. It is like, I've grown a lot of plants, right? I've been doing this since I was a little kid, and like, this one is cool. There's always room for improvement, right? But this one showed up and I was like, oh man, I'm lucky. Did I take clones of this? Did I take
Oh God.
Thank you. I took clones of this. I was not dumb. I have been through that before so many times, and I'm telling you, if you've done that to yourself, just, you know, don't make the mistake, dude, because as soon as you slip, right? And I could have slipped on this one. I missed this one right through the cracks, but I didn't.
Wow.
This one has, like, as soon as it kicks into flower, it throws resin on all the stems like you wouldn't believe. And it's not just like hair. It's like tomato hair resin stalks.
Right.
Like, it's full on heads, and
Right.
you can check it. It's like, it is wild, like the way that it stacks up and looks. It's like, you don't have to zoom in, you don't have to take a look, you just look at it, and like, in between the nugs, in between that section, and it's quite a little section because it's got the OG in there, and it's got some Pam in there, I believe. So it's got this stretch thing to it, which is epic. So it's got some space, and in those spaces are just resin filled stems, like from top to bottom, which if you just clipped off the stems and kept them by the thing, you could wash the stems alone and come out with a huge yield, which is going to start a whole new like a whole new sector of the market, like stem washing, because it's like you can't put it in as easy. It'll poke holes in it. Like, you're gonna have to do it a little different because all the stems are so resinous. You can't throw them away. You have to find a way to process that, right? It's not like it's a little bit of resin. It's not like, oh, this is a good. It's like, fuck, we need to process this one, dude. This is a good one, right? So, it is the stock, stock market, the stocks. It is the stock machine, right? It's gonna stock washing. It's gonna start hashtag stem washing, hashtag stock, something along those lines. But it's got this cool pumpkin pie spice fuel thing, right? So it's OG, definitely, no doubt about it. It's OG.
It's spicy.
You got this OG hot mustard thing in there, right? It's really cool. But it's like sweet on the front part of it, right? You got this pumpkin pie, cinnamony, sweetness thing to it. It's really kind of nice. It's not hugely like odorous as, say, your cowboy caviars or the other things that you would grow, my Pams or other things. Like when you're like trying to get into it, it really makes you come in and draw in and think about it and really, because it doesn't present itself until after it's harvested. And then what I really found is after you wash it, when it's washed, and it has the best fucking bud structure for washing because it's these flat Pringles buds. So the buds are like they flatten out and they look like Pringles chips. And they do this weird like flatten out Pringles chips thing where they're just super cool. And it's just drenched in resin. The stems are resin. And you got these crazy colorful Pringles chips, OG buds coming off the stalks like that. And it's really unique and epic looking, right? So it washes like a son of a bitch. The first time I washed, I'm not a very good washer. I smoke flour. I'm an old guy now. I smoke flour. It is what it is. And it's so awesome as a flower, but everybody was telling me I had to wash it, because it's like a must wash type plant when you see it, so I was like, I washed it and I got some pretty good returns on it the first time, but I lost a lot, and it's hot in Southern California, and it's just a pain in the ass for me to do it. So the next time I took it serious and I washed like an ounce of it, and I got like a 7% return, 8% return, and I'm lazy and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I'm just trying to do all this other stuff, and it's superb and it's bubbly and beautiful, and I pressed some and kept some, and but it washed and dumped like I've never seen, and I've seen it plenty. So it's gonna wash, it's gonna sit in jars, it's gonna make people really, really, really fucking happy. But if I can now I've reversed that one already, and I've already got it reversed, triple time, double staggered, putting it on all kinds of stuff. Like, it's going on the strawberry cough, it's going on the grape ape, it's going on a bunch of fruit things. So we get some flavor in there, more flavor for that hash wash ability that we got going on, bring some flavor into the fuels. And with that stock, with that stock characteristic, we're going to select stockies, so we're going to dive through there. We got to the Pam 1 to the Pam 15 to itself, so some S1s, we're some S1s. But that's the new project that's like in action right now, is the stock market, fem project. So we're getting all those going off, and man, I'm too excited to like see what happens.
I love seeing the excitement, man. That's fun when you get that like geek out on something like that. And I'm wondering too, because I know there's different kinds of trichomes, and sometimes the different kinds of trichomes sit on like your fan leaves or even the stalks. I wonder if you do get like to the point where you're able to stock wash and then flower wash, if they're going to have different profiles.
Yeah.
Or what happens when you combine the two? Do you get something different than if you're just doing the flower itself? So that's crazy. I love gardening.
You can see like how cool, and like they're just full on, just tall, big ass heads, hanging right on the stalk, and you're like, dude, right on, you know, like, oh, that is just the coolest, you know. So
Yeah, I've you know I've come across a couple, and there's one it's just like I don't even want to touch that to trim it. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
go through a whole box of gloves just to
uh-huh.
clean this one fucking plant. Like,
Totally,
yeah, wash
totally,
it, wash
totally,
it.
totally. Yeah, so that's what I'm excited about. That's gonna be cool. So all the fun stuff that I get to find and play with, that's gonna be fun. That'll be a good one. Yeah.
All right, I guess, and then I guess, because again, you're breeding and you're doing so much work and you have a lot to look through. I don't imagine you get to try other people's genetics a whole lot. But if there were one pack that you were gonna pop next from somebody else, maybe what would that be, and why are you going to that one?
Man, that's a hell of a question. That's a tough one.
It
Um,
is. There's so many
there's so
beans I
many,
want to
there's so
pop.
many, there's so many good characters out there. You know what I mean? Like, I would really like, I would like to collect one seed from 12 different people, and
That's awesome.
and I take 12 of my solids, some solid characters. I'll take 1 year Westport grape juices.
Yeah.
I'll take one, I'll take one archives, favorite things he wants to share with me. Um, I'll take something from Bodie, I'll take something from Dutch Blooms up there because he's got the
Yep.
weather, and I like
Yep.
tough stuff, and he's cool. So we'll take something from him. We'll take, but yeah, I'd like to take one seed from 12 breeders, and then, like, to give you a real answer. Um, Son of a bitch, which one would I want right now?
Yep.
I'd like to try the Trico Jordan. Um,
Okay. Belief. Cannabis.
Yeah, I would like to try a pack of that, or a pack of two of that to see what was going on in there, to see, because there's a lot of cool, like, Mac traits in there and some other stuff, and I don't know what any of that is, but I would like to dissect something like that to see, and I would love to put that with my stock market, because there's something like that with my stock market, right? Like, I think that would be a next level move. Um, to do that, if it turned out any good that way. And I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I've just seen pictures as of recently, and I'm like, that's not bad. I might, that's something I might want to put with stock market there. So that's a real answer on, like, a pack that I'd like to
Yeah.
experiment with, right? If I was given
Yeah.
one pack to try, I would try that, because I know, you know, I know I know what most everybody else is kind of doing, and what those things are going. And the mystery genetic thing, that intrigues me a little bit, to where I would like to dissect it. My scientist comes out.
Right. Again, it's something that comes with time, but in the beginning, all the plants look very similar. And yeah, you may be able to distinguish between, like, finger size or serration size, but as time goes on, there are little tips of the hat that you're just like, this is that and this is that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
had
I'm
to come
pretty,
from
with your
here.
experience, I'm sure you'll
Yeah,
be able to suss a few things out,
this
at
is
least,
from
the
here. That's
branch.
that. Yeah, for sure. I love
Yeah.
doing that. I think that's fun too. So
Yeah.
that keeps things fun. It's not known and playing around. I mean, nothing better than popping seeds, man. That's why I do it all the time. Everything that I love. Even nothing, everything. We're popping seeds because, just, in 5 years you'll be happy you popped that seed, that
Mhm.
that tree, or that, whatever. So I'm all about the hunt, bro. I love that.
Yeah, well, that's cool, and I wish you luck with that one. I'm sure it'll be good. That'll be just like trichomes on trichomes, because I've grown a couple of the things from Belief. I've seen, his Instagram, and through Future Cannabis Project, I've been fortunate enough to host him a few times. But his Kool-Aid Man that I grew, still to this day, the most trichome covered plant I have grown. Like,
Hell yeah.
no BS, that is the number one trichome. And there's some that are close, and I've grown very, very frosty cannabis in the past, but this was just like, are you serious?
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's you mentioned, the Dog and Dot Garden site. Maybe what is your website, or what are some good places that people can get a hold of you or just kind of look at some of your work?
No, hell yeah. Orchard Fever, orchardfever.com. That's my site. You can get all kinds of funny stuff. There's fruit tree stuff, vegetable stuff, seed stuff. Sometimes there's all kinds of trades, and fun stuff that's up there. There's shirts. That's going on at Orchard Fever, and then my Instagram is always good. That's a fun one. Family Tree Seeds, just all one word. There's a couple of fakers out there, so watch the spelling.
Yep.
All that jazz. I don't reach out to you and try to sell you anything ever. So people do that.
Totally.
That ain't me.
And I'll put the link down in the show notes as well as below us on the screen so people get the right spelling. Because,
Totally.
if you've been on Instagram long enough, we've all fallen for it. Particularly when we're like, oh my gosh, Family Tree Seeds just started following me. Then you're like, 0 followers, no pictures. Damn, I've been bamboozled.
Totally. So yeah, that's always good. You can check out the YouTube channel too. Sometimes if you like fruit tree stuff, that's Mr. Trees. Go to YouTube, go to channels, type in Mr. Trees, it'll bring you up. Check that out. There's going to be a bunch of drops on that coming up. We've been working hard on getting content going, so we're going to start plugging those off like nobody's business coming up. It's fruit tree season, so there's a lot of stuff from trying to get captured. So that's going to be cool. But yeah, if you got questions, if anybody ever has problems or issues or any of that stuff, man, just reach out to me, man. Talk to me. We'll see what's going on. I want to help. If you got a problem with your tree, hit me up. I'd love to help. I've helped a lot of people save their trees and stuff just from pictures in their garden, So,
Right.
If you need something or something's going wrong, man, hit me up, man. I'll help you out, dude. That's my goal. So it's all good.
Well, that's cool, man. And thank you for extending that. That's cool, not only for cannabis, but also, for the fruit trees. Because again, a lot of us we cross over now, and amazingly, some traditional farmers cross over to cannabis too. So it goes both ways. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for your time for the show. Everybody keep on watching. We got more coming up. But Mr. Trees, Tyler, dude, thank you so much again for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Dude, Chad, thank you, man. Party on.
1, 2, Westport!